Africa is one of the richest continents on Earth. It holds over 30% of the world's mineral reserves, massive oil and gas fields, diamonds, gold, cobalt, uranium, and rare earth metals. It has enough fertile land to feed the entire planet. It's a profound contradiction that has shaped global history for centuries. So the real question isn't about what Africa has, but why that incredible wealth has so often failed to reach its people. Before European colonization, the narrative of a backward or empty continent simply wasn't true. Great empires like those of Mali, Songhai, and Great Zimbabwe controlled vast gold trade routes that connected Africa with Europe and Asia. Africa wasn't poor, but everything changed in the late 1800s. During the period known as the Scramble for Africa, European powers descended upon the continent and carved it up among themselves. Borders were drawn on maps in distant European capitals with no regard for the cultures, languages, or histories of the people living there. These new colonial systems were designed for one purpose and one purpose only: to extract resources as cheaply and as quickly as possible. Africa was engineered to become a supplier, not a producer. And when formal colonization ended, that fundamental economic structure remained. By the middle of the 20th century, a wave of independence movements swept across the continent. African nations finally gained their political freedom. But political independence did not automatically mean economic freedom. Many newly independent countries inherited weak institutions, artificial borders that created internal tensions, and economies dangerously dependent on a single export, like cocoa or copper. Foreign corporations often maintained their control over the most lucrative assets, the oil fields, the mines, and the supply chains. Africa owned the land, but others controlled the profits. This created a situation where wealth was still being extracted, just under a different political arrangement. Economists have a term for this phenomenon: the resource curse. It is a paradox where countries rich in natural resources often experience slower economic growth and worse development outcomes than countries with fewer resources. They tend to rely too heavily on raw material exports, which makes their economies vulnerable to global price swings. This focus on extraction often leads to the neglect of other vital sectors like education, healthcare, and manufacturing. Furthermore, when a government's revenue comes from oil or minerals instead of taxes from its citizens, it weakens accountability. Leaders don't need the public's support in the same way, which can lead to corruption and political instability. Instead of wealth creating development for everyone, it concentrates power in the hands of a few. Today, this dynamic continues. Africa supplies the world with materials that are critical for our modern lives: cobalt for our smartphones, and electric car batteries, uranium for nuclear power, and rare earth metals for all kinds of advanced technology. Yet, the story is often the same. These raw materials are exported for a low price, processed in other countries, and then the finished products are sold back at a massive profit. The global economy benefits immensely from African resources, but Africa itself receives only a fraction of the final value. This isn't an accident. It's a structural feature of the global economic system. Of course, external pressures are only part of the story. Internal problems play a significant role as well. Widespread corruption, weak governance, and failures in leadership have drained public funds that should have been used for schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. This has discouraged investment and slowed down development from within. When a country's institutions are weak, its natural wealth is more likely to benefit a small, powerful elite rather than the entire nation. And once corruption becomes normalized, it can trap a country in a cycle of poverty that is incredibly difficult to break. So let's get to the heart of it. Is Africa really poor? The answer is no. Africa is not a poor continent. It is a continent whose wealth has been systematically extracted. Today, Many African economies are among the fastest growing in the world. Innovation is booming in sectors like fintech, renewable energy, and creative industries. A young, dynamic, and increasingly educated population holds massive potential for the future. What Africa lacks is not resources. What it needs are fair global trade systems, strong and accountable institutions, and control over its own value chains so it can process its resources and capture their full worth. Poverty isn't a natural state for Africa. It has been produced. Ultimately, Africa's story is not one of inherent failure. It's a story of a global system built on extraction, and of local systems that are still struggling to break free from that legacy. So perhaps the real question we should be asking is no longer, why is Africa poor? But rather, who benefits from Africa staying this way? And more importantly, how long will that system last? Because the future of Africa and its ability to finally harness its own immense wealth may very well determine the future of the entire global economy.